Record to the cloud. I love Zoom. Hey, welcome everybody. I can't hear you guys, but I can see you guys eating. It looks delicious. Wonderful. Hey, Jeff is coming over, and we have a special guest, Brent Baker here. I want to, before we jump in and I pass it over to Brent, I have a few little things. We just have some great, some similar faces, some new faces. Hey, we're recording this too, and we actually have a decent amount of people that end up watching this on YouTube, or they're going to watch it down the line. So let's all say hi to them. Hello, everyone. We're gonna be covering tech and sound today, which I'm really excited for. One of the things that usually happens is there's resources that are talked about during our webinar. You know, whether it's a book or it's a resource. I'm going to be taking notes through this whole time, so don't you guys worry about, again, putting down your spoons for the ice cream. You know, I'll get those links to you guys. We'll get Pastor Steve. I'll make sure I'm getting an email out to you guys. Anybody that's registered for the webinar, you guys are going to be getting that email too, with different, whether the resources or apps or anything that could be really helpful for you guys. So I'm taking notes, getting all that stuff correlated, and I'm also going to be sending a recording of this. And then also I want to just remind us that there's this is our third part 3 of this our worship webinar series. We call them huddles, and we have another one on August 12th. So I'm going to be sharing a link with you guys at the end of the webinar, or the huddle tonight too, for you guys to be able to register. But mark it on your calendars right now, Monday night, August 12th at 8 p.m. We're right back here talking about something. I'm not sure. We'll have to ask Jeff. We'll talk about it. But I'm just so glad that we're here. I know I've had conversations with a few of you guys already, and it seems like it's been really helpful for you. And we're just excited that we get to help churches and help worship leaders. Worship leading isn't just about music, it's about leading. And I feel like it's taking these times to become better leaders and to become better worshipers and followers of Christ. That's what's going to help our teams and our churches really grow in the area of worship and encountering who God is and his presence. So tonight is really special. Like I said, Jeff is going to be here in a couple minutes, but he brought our friend Brent on. And Brent, why don't you, I know you just met Jeff about a year ago or so. Why don't you kind of introduce yourself, and then we'll keep moving.
Absolutely. So I have been in ministry for about 20 years now. Started doing worship and youth and all the hats that you give youth and worship leaders. That's just usually the case. About 7 years ago officially, I made the change. About 10 years ago, I started the change. 7 years officially, I made the change over to production and church production, working with churches about 1,500 or larger out in California. I've been there for 8 or 9 years before, about a year and a half ago. In Southern California, right before we moved here, I was working a lot with the Calvary Chapel churches in Southern California. I taught at the Bible school there, taught sound and recording, and worked with, or consulted with 2 churches and worked full-time at one church overseeing all production. I have a real heart for production, and not the production of things, but the ministry of production. I think there is a major disconnect on what production and the ministry of production really is. And I feel like it's important for churches to understand that good production is not a bad thing. And in fact, it may be one of the most important things that we do. So.
Hey, can I ask you a question right off the bat? Because that's a really hot topic. We actually talked about this a little bit in our first webinar, talking about the presence, basically practicing the presence of God. And the idea I think a lot of people talk about is, hey, if I'm really trying to be, maybe the most blunt and way to say it was like, if I'm trying to be really great, I'm trying to be too excellent, and I'm trying too hard, and the lights and all this different stuff, I'm getting away of the presence of God moving. Like I think we understand what that question is saying. It's like, it feels like people can say, well, it's either totally spontaneous or our production value is off through the roof. How do we balance that kind of question?
Absolutely. I think it's balanced within planning. When it comes to production, I'm going to step back just a second here. My philosophy, the philosophy of production that I teach, is not, we need to make sure that we are never focused on making things pretty or making things better. Our focus in the production side of things are to eliminate distractions so that the Holy Spirit can do whatever he wants to do. He can use us as worship leaders to do whatever he wants to do with the congregation. And that's not just, when I say eliminate distractions, we're limiting distractions both for us as leaders. So we don't want to be distracted with bad sound or just a bad way, whatever it might be. And we also don't want our congregation to be distracted in any way. So there's going to be certain churches that have flashy lights and it's not distracting to their congregation. And there's going to be certain churches that have flashy lights and it's crazy distracting and they need to get rid of them. There is no one answer for any church. It is, what have you been called to? And look at that, see how it fits. So when we're talking about making things great, I always go back to the scripture. I love the scripture because it literally tells us everything we ever need to know. God expects the absolute best from us. He wants our sacrifices to be the best. Not the best overall, but our best. So to make sure that we're able to give our best, we have to get rid of all of that other junk. Anything that gets in the way of giving him our best, it's not worth having.
That's great. Well, Jeff is back.
I'm back.
Jeff, you said you had thoughts or questions. You want to kind of just take it over and go take us where we need to be?
Yeah, well, Brent, I'm going to let you take most of this because I know that you have a lot to share before the Q&A time. But something that I love what you just said about that. I think that when I think about like excellence and like the balance between excellence and spontaneity, I feel like a lot of times people are just afraid of excellence because they're afraid that it'll be too distracting, it'll be too, it'll take away from the spontaneity. But I actually think that when you approach ministry with excellence and even like the production side of things, you think back to like, the early church and stuff, and even throughout the church history, a form of worship was art and artistry and all those beautiful paintings and all those beautiful Catholic churches that have those stained glass mirrors and all that stuff. Those are forms of excellence. Those are forms of production, if you will. And we look at that as beautiful. In the same way, sound, production, all that stuff can be used to glorify God. There's people with talents that can make things sound amazing, make things sound beautiful. There's also people that can make things look, pleasing to the eye. And that's a form of, I look at that just as I look at like the Sistine Chapel. You know what I mean? Like it's almost the same way. Like there's this beauty that people get. And so it's really just like, it doesn't actually take away, and it's not actually distracting if you're looking at it in the right context. It actually helps also people. I honestly always say this, that I think that bad sound is actually far more distracting than good sound and excellence. I think that actually hinders worship more than excellence hinders worship. So I think that's a good point. So way to go, Brent. I'm glad I brought you into this. So.
Hey, before we jump in, we're going to have lots of time for Q&A. And so if you guys want to either save your questions in your head or if you want to type them in the chat box, feel free to do that, and we'll either get to them tonight or we'll get to them somehow. We've actually been thinking about starting some kind of Facebook group where we do Q&As and just basically build community within the different worship leaders and people part of worship teams, leaders that we've been connecting with over the last few months. So Like I said, if you have questions, write them down, put them in the chat box, save them in your brain, wherever. We're going to make sure we get to a lot of those questions later.
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome.
Sweet. Well, Brent, did you already introduce him when I was driving over?
I said he knows you.
Yeah. Brent and I, we go way back, like years. No, actually met Brent at the Oasis conference. What was it, 2 years ago, maybe?
Oh, that's right. Yes, I was walking out, and that's right. I forgot about that.
Crazy. So I'll just, before we go into it, because I want to make sure you have a lot of time, but I was talking to, I just got done with the Northeast Worship Camp this past week. Brent was there too, which was incredible. We had over 70 young adults. We had 72 teenagers that were just going insanely hard after God all week. And man, the presence of God was so cool. I could go talk for hours about what happened, but I won't. Anyway, 2 years ago, I was talking about how I didn't have a sound person to one of my friends. And as I'm talking about this, Brent walks right by with a guitar, and I'm like, he's like, "Hey man, I just want to introduce myself. I don't know, you don't know me. My name's Brent." And he's like, "I do sound. I did sound for a living. I have a passion for like sound." And I was like, "Time out. I was literally just talking about how I needed a sound person." He's like, "Dude, I got you." And so he came to the worship camp, and he literally is my angel in disguise. So, so I'm really grateful for his friendship. We've had a lot of great conversations in the last 2 years about how, we have very strong passion for just seeing the local church, especially smaller churches, excel in their value on worship and excellence and things like that. So, Brent, take it away with what you have to share a little bit about your passion for sound, and then we'll go into Q&A.
Yeah. So, excuse me. So, gosh, I mean, you guys kind of, we've kind of said a lot so far, and I love answering questions. I love getting into, because like Jeff said, we both have the same passion of making sure the local church is growing. And as I've already stated, every church is different. There is no one answer for anybody. And I want to make that perfectly clear, especially when it comes to production and sound. It is very, very important that you take into account the vision of the church, who you're trying to reach. A church that is trying to reach an older generation, or who has an established older generation and a great ministry going on with that, doesn't want to bring in new stuff. It's not going to be beneficial to that ministry. But a church that's trying to reach families, it's very important that we look at what families are attracted to. Now, when I say things like this, please don't get me wrong. I use a lot of buzzwords. It just kind of, again, I've been in California for a long time, so buzzwords are very very important.
Pretty gnarly, dude.
Hey, don't get me started. But we need to make sure that we are going down the path that God has put us on. Whatever that vision is, it's important that we have a good picture of every step that we need to take. So part of knowing every step that we need to take is knowing, okay, here's the destination, here's the people that we're trying to reach. How do we get these people to be walking on this path with us? So, it's very important to know who you're trying to reach when it comes to production, and it's also important to know who you have when it comes to a worship team. We at the church I'm going to now, we are in Greece, New Testament, actually where Jeff grew up. That's how I heard his name when I first moved here. And when I came in, one of my best friends, him and his wife, are at this church. They're on staff at the church, and they asked me to help with some sound and that sort of thing. And I came in, and to be completely honest, was quite horrified with what I found. Here they are, really trying to reach families and younger people, and we're still using sound equipment that, honestly, half of it may be even a positive, I don't know, but half of it didn't work, and it was horrible sound, terribly distracting, even to people who know nothing about music or anything else. There's feedback and there's distortion, and you can't understand things. It was that bad on a weekly basis at this church. I came in, and the reason why they hadn't switched over was because there were other churches around the area that had done a switch over. They had went and found professional sound people, and stick with me, but professional secular sound people. And these people came in and said, hey, we're going to do this for you. And there are churches spending $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 for new sound systems, which honestly, a lot of churches are, well, that they kind of expect that because that's what everybody says. Not understanding that the whole environment of sound and even video, all of these things have completely changed in the past 10 years. Completely, with digital coming into sound, with different things coming into video and lighting, everything has changed, and the cost has, I mean, it's just imploded. There's nothing there anymore. So when I came to them and I said, okay, this is what I believe you need. Actually, I think this is more than what you need. This will help us be ready for growth for the next 3 or 4 years. And I quoted them 10,000. And they said, hold up, what are we missing? I said, well, nothing, because that's replacing everything. That literally, let's throw away everything. I don't see a good thing in this building. Let's throw it away and let's get new. And they were able to do that because, I mean, honestly, it was very simple for them because of the size church that they were at that time, and the funds that they had. I mean, 50, 60,000 that's not doable. 10,000 is a drop in the bucket in comparison to that when you're thinking 50, 60,000. So every time I walk into a church, I find that this is the case. Their needs are much more simple than what they've been led to believe or what they think. And it's not a church's, it's not a pastor's job, it's not a worship leader's job to go out and find all of this information, all of the information. In my spare time, I read booklets on different things that have just come out, different soundboards or different speaker ratings and that sort of thing. This is what I do in my spare time. Jeff does not do that. Jeff is worrying. He's learning new chords on his guitar. Thank God. And that's a good thing. He's practicing the things that he needs to practice. He's doing those things and allowing someone like myself to come in and know what needs to be done. I think this is a great thing, and I'm super excited that to be a part of this. You know, I was talking to Josh. I've talked to other people at Elam, and to be able to share with local churches knowledge that you guys would be paying a lot of money for someone like me. And I'm just going to be honest. In previously in Southern California, even doing a call like this, I would charge a good amount of money. If it was outside what my ministry that I was doing. This is I'm really glad to be here and be a part that this is a ministry. And you know, I just want to throw out real quick. I have a heart for Elam. I have a heart for this area, and Jeff and I have talked about this a lot. If there's anything that any of you churches feel like you need, please contact me. I'll throw my information out there. But I definitely want to help all churches grow. That's my ministry, is to make sure that you guys are able to do what God wants to do without distraction. That's what production is to me.
That's really
So,
good. So a couple questions right off the bat before I open it up to everybody else. Did you have something?
No, I'm just gonna. Can you guys hear Jeff really well? Good.
Thumbs up if you can.
It's kind of hollow, but you can hear him.
Right. Come on, Brent, you gotta come over here and EQ our
No, I need to get my mic. I know.
I mean, speaking of audio, yeah, not good.
Exactly. So you just said that you came from a church. You're in a church right now, and you said it cost $10,000 to kind of fix it up. Now, is you're talking more than just a soundboard, right? You're talking like stage setup, lighting.
that is literally wires, microphones, speakers. That is everything. That is an entire sound system that is capable of. It's capable of, very capable of, I don't know, maybe 12 to 1,500 people.
Nice.
So right around that area. And we are in our church, we're only about 300. And so that's another point that I can make later on. But like,
aiming for the future.
For the future, we're ready, and we're easily able to add to this as well.
Yeah, but did it also include? So it's not just soundboard, correct? It's also the lighting and all that too, right?
The lighting was separate. So if we include lighting and computers, we got new TVs and all of that. I believe that the number for all of that together came out to be, I think it was just under 14,000.
Okay, that's good.
And so we got like, 3 70-inch TVs and blah, 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 all that junk.
So
jazz, not junk.
If we're talking about like smaller churches who I know, like even my church, we don't, my annual worship budget for the entire year is somewhere around $1,000, and that includes everything. Like if a snare head breaks, if a TV, I always get so annoyed because they throw like the media and all that stuff into my sound budget, and I'm like, I just wish that these were separate, because this, like, TVs are expensive, you know what I mean? Like, all this stuff is so like I literally can buy like
#Prime Day.
Yeah, like I can't buy. I could literally buy one microphone with my budget. But say there's a church out there, what are like some tips you would give a church that maybe don't have a budget to improve their sound system right now? But as far as like one thing that I really am passionate about is making very effective practices. I really, really hate long practices. I hate like unorganized practices. And a lot of that, in my experience, happens to be with sound problems, sound issues. Somebody can't hear themselves very, very well, or something's not plugged in right. But stuff like that. But I'm wondering if you have any like quick tips for like a sound person to run an effective sound check, like, to make sure everybody's like, everybody's ready to go and they feel comfortable. Like, what are some, if they can't, say they have wedges, they have floor monitors and like maybe an analog board, maybe a digital board, which if you guys are you guys familiar with analog and digital? Okay, good. All right, great. So you know what I'm talking about. Good. So let's say they have wedges. They don't have in-ear monitors yet. What are some like effective ways to get a practice started, so that they feel prepared?
Man, there were so many questions right there. Yeah. So I want to step back just a little bit farther real quick. And we were talking about cost. Now I want to start with that real quick.
That's my next question too. So if you want me to start with that question, you can.
I want to start with that real quick because I think it really will help us answer some other questions.
Okay, great.
When it comes to cost, you don't have to spend $1 million to get good stuff, but you do have to spend something most of the time. Sometimes you have some, but anyway, the last church I was in Southern California, it was a church we met at a junior high school, and we would set up every single week. So, and this is a church of 1,500. It was a huge setup. Okay, it was big, and 3 services with the setup and tear down and all the stuff going on. stuff was breaking all the time. And when I came in there, there were certain things that they were like, oh yeah, we buy one of those every few months. And I asked, well, why don't we do this? Well, that's really expensive. And I said, okay, so how many of those units, so it was a video unit, how many of those video units have you bought in the last year? And they had bought 3, each one costing $400, okay? So $300, $400, $1,200. The good unit that would have, honestly, we could have racked and it would have been fine, only cost $1,400. So $1,400 one time, and they know that they're going to have to. So when I came in there, that was the first thing I did. I bought that, and then we spent 4 years and never had to buy another one. So things like that. We have to be good stewards. That's a big deal. We don't want to buy something to band-aid an issue. We want to buy something to fix an issue, so that there is no issue anymore. We want to fix things. We want things to be done correctly. So to spend money in that way is very important. And I think any church coming in with a budget and saying, hey, look, this is maybe a little bit above budget, but this is going to last us a long time. And if you bring that to your pastor, you bring that to your church a lot of times, you can get support from somebody in the church is going to be like, you know what? If that's going to help them, we want to bless our worship team. We want, because we're being blessed by our worship team. Here's the few $100s, whatever it is. Honestly, that happens at our church all the time, and it's beautiful. So I really want to always encourage people, get the right thing, don't Band-Aid, okay? Second, so you were asking what can we do to make practices better, and if you have a low budget, where do you start to better your sound system or better?
Yeah. So if you had like a church that had like say 15, like the church is like, okay, I'll give you $1,500 to kind of up our sound system. $1,500. Like what would you start with?
$1,500 is everything I need. So
okay,
so
great.
Here we go.
Perfect.
No, so nowadays, once again, everything has changed. So there is I don't know if any of you have heard of Camp Shiloh. I know the guys here have. It's a youth camp. I just went ahead and put together a new sound system for this youth camp, and it's a traveling sound system. They did not have a lot of money. This is a youth camp. This is something we had to raise very quickly, but we wanted to keep it simple, but something that's going to last for a long time. Always something that's going to last us.
Yeah,
but let's keep it simple. Nowadays we can do that. The one thing I think that that helps worship teams the most, and also helps the sound guys the most, would be in-ears. Jeff, would you agree with me on that?
I would 175% agree with you on
that. So the thing is, a lot of people think you have to purchase super expensive Avioms or things like that. You don't. Nowadays, you can get a rack mixer. So a mixer that everybody, I don't know if everybody knows the mixers. It's one of those things with all the knobs and sliders on it that makes things get loud, or, the guy who, when the big noise happens, you look back at him, he's sitting behind it. That's the mixer, okay? They have rack mixers. So things that sit right on the stage with you, you plug right into that, and then you connect an iPad or a tablet or even a phone to that, and you can adjust those things. There are PreSonus, Midas, Behringer, all of those have rack mixers for $1,000 right now or less. And they are fantastic mixers, every single one of them. Some may be more user-friendly than others, but it's all it all depends on your sound guys and what they're comfortable with. There's honestly, nowadays, there's really not one that's better than the other when it comes to what it sounds like. It's not like the old analog boards. These are digital processors. It's not like that anymore. And then to add a wired Behringer, I know, is what we use. Behringer headphone power amp, and you plug a wire into that and run it to your thing. It's $150 for a Behringer headphone amp for 8 channels, so you can hook up 8 people with their own individual ear mixes. Okay, everybody has in-ears. You're getting rid of all of that stage volume. Everyone is only hearing what they want to hear. So in your ears, if you don't want to hear all of the other singers, like for me, I'll be honest, I play guitar. I don't like to hear anybody else because it messes me up. So I want to hear the click track. I want to hear whoever's leading.
Good for everybody else, Brent.
Click track, the click track, whoever's leading, and then myself. I don't want to hear anybody else because I know my part and I'm going to do it well. But you can have whatever you want in your ear, whatever helps you. You can have it louder, quieter. You get to pick.
Yeah. So personally, one thing, really quick,
$1,500. That's it.
Yeah, something that I in-ear monitors changed my life. It's a bit of a learning curve if you've never used them before, but once you use them, you sing. I'm telling you, even as I had to watch my voice because I have, my 20s, I traveled and I did not take care of my voice, so now I lose it all the time. In-ear monitors, nowadays, whenever I use wedges or stage monitors, I lose my voice because I end up screaming because I can't hear myself. But with in-ear monitors, I can turn myself up as loud as I want, like Brent's saying, and turn everybody else down. Not because they're better, I'm better than everybody else, but just, you know what I mean? Like you just sing. First of all, you sing a lot healthier and you sing more confidently because you actually hear yourself. And another thing that's really pivotal nowadays in the worship, music scene is metronomes or click tracks. And you can't really use click tracks if you don't have in-ear monitors.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a terrible because everybody else in the stage is going to hear. What it does is it's actually like a lot of people get really into tracks.
2. Sorry.
Because
that's exactly it.
But yeah, exactly. A lot of people get intimidated by it because it almost shows their lack of ability to stay on time a lot of times. Like when you're first using it. Remember when I first started using ClickTrack, I could not stay on rhythm at all. But you gotta, it's a part of teaching your team the excellence aspect of worship. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be, and I guarantee you after a while you'll all of a sudden you can't get off the click almost.
So that's the benefit for the people on the stage. Let's talk about the benefit for the people in the seats or the sound man. I was a sound man for 10 years. I understand what stage noise is. Can you talk a little bit about one of the things I always hear is, could you turn that down? It's like, I can't. You're just going to be hearing the wedges. Can you talk about a little bit how something like in-ears helps the people in the seats?
It's control for everything. So, it helps the sound guys in multiple ways. So you're getting rid of all of that stage volume, all of that noise. I mean, it's noise, and everybody needs something different. But what you got to remember is, you turn something up over here. This person has something else turned up over here. Well, now you have to turn this up a little bit more because you're hearing some bleed over from over here, and it's just this war. Constant war that goes on.
And so when you're 8 or 10 decibels creates clarity or something like that. What is that range? You know what I'm saying? It's like if it's so loud from the stage, you have to put it up 10 decibels.
Oh yeah.
For the singing. What do you know what that is? It's something around.
So I technically.
Sorry.
Technically, it's only about 3 decibels.
Okay.
But honestly, I've never met a stage that has floor wedges, successful floor wedges. Now, I'm not talking about just floor wedges. I'm talking about successful monitors that you're hearing what you need to hear. I've never once heard a stage under 95 decibels. Never once. It's loud. It is very loud, and it needs to be because you are, once again, fighting with all the other noise on stage. You're not that even comes from secular, from concerts and things like that. When there's big amps and there's drums, if you have open drums on stage, if you stand within 3 feet of those drums, you're hitting at least 120 decibels right there. You're almost to pain tolerance right there. I mean, it's really, really high. So even if they're at the back of the stage and you're sitting in the front row without them, oh gosh, I don't know how much trouble I want to get in right here. But unless you have them completely enclosed, you're not going to drop the noise. So from the front of the stage to where the drums are, say 15, 20 feet, the lowest that's going to be is about 90 decibels. Lowest that's going to be is 90 decibels, usually a little bit higher than that. I'm going to throw something out there, and this is a very unpopular thing to say, but I'm going to say it. The shields don't do anything unless they're enclosed. Well, I take that back. It does do something. It reflects the sound. It doesn't actually dissipate sound at all. So it actually can cause more issue if not used correctly. But hey, it helps some people really feel better, and that's good. We want people to feel good. So we have a shield at our church, and before we put the shield up, we took our readings, we put the shield up. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter. But you have to, the people now in the congregation, what we're able to do with them now. Actually, let me step back one more. So you have in-ears. You need to mic better. You need to mic more. We run, I'm crazy, and they allow me to be crazy at my church. So I really mic our drums up. I run 10 mics on our drums. I would run more if I had them. I just don't.
How many channels do you have on your board?
We have 32 on our board.
All right.
So actually, I only run 2 more channels for the rest of everybody else on stage than I do my drums. So I really like miking things. But I think it's very important to have everything mic'd and mic'd well for everyone wearing the in-ears. But then as well, we're getting rid of all of that stage noise. The better that it's mic'd, the more now that we can put through our speakers, okay? So for the congregation, they're going to actually be able to get all the sound that they need. They're not going to be missing out. You wouldn't think so, because cymbals can be really loud, or, when normally this and that. But the sibilance, just that, as soon as you lose that, the entire sound becomes muddy. It is very important for your drums to be good and clear and keep that high end. Otherwise, the entirety of your sound, your vocals, your guitars, your keyboards, everything else will sound muddy just because those drums don't sound the way they should. And if you listen to any great album over the last 50 years, you'll hear nice, clear drums, and then everything else kind of rests with it. And that's really where that's why I mic the drums the way I do. I want a nice, clear sound. I want my vocals to be coming through nice and clear, and not be lost in some muddy mess.
Which cymbals really bleed through the vocal mic too. That's a huge problem. So that's the drum bleed is a huge issue. But I just looked at the time though, and I want to make sure that we get some Q&As going, so that we don't take all our time talking about, because we could probably talk for so long about this stuff. We always do. So
This is why it's important if we write our questions down. Maybe we'll be able to get some answers or some short videos in the future. Too. Well, let's open up. Who has some questions that they have? This could be about system. We've been talking a lot about systems and cost and what that looks like. I have a question about sound men and how we train our sound people and things like that. We could do it anything that has to do with tech, sound, production, anything that you guys have. It's open season.
I'll say this, our biggest problem has been our monitors, and we've had exactly that war, although you can't see my face. And, oh, here we go. We've had exactly that problem, the monitor wars. And so if you could, at the end of this, some of the stuff that you named off that were economical in-ear systems that, you know, don't cost the same thing as a whole new system, as it were.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it would be tremendous if we can get into that arena. It would be a great benefit.
Absolutely. Like I said, and even so, like the $150 headphone amplifier, okay, from Behringer, it gives you 8 channels. So now, if you have an existing board that has 4 monitor outputs, that's okay. You can still do that, and everybody still have in-ears. Now, there's going to be some people sharing channels. That'll happen, but it's still better than having those 4 monitors there and having all that noise. And I mean, unless it's a very old board, usually you have at least four monitor channels. Yeah. But even if you don't, there's other things that we can do. There's other options, I suppose, that you can play with and get those in-ears for darn near nothing. You know, you get your $150 in extension wires that cost $5 or $6 on Amazon a piece, and then everybody buys a decent pair of ears, and you're good.
Yeah, there's a whole other story right there. The in-ears. Anyway.
Yeah.
Would you be able to? That actually could be really helpful. Would you be able to? Would you be willing to put together, you know, a half sheet of, hey, if you know, hot buys basically of like, hey, something
absolutely.
That'd be really
$1,500 church purchase.
Yeah, and you know, I like to, I really like to personalize as much as possible. So, like, you know, I'll definitely do that. Hot buys for churches, that sort of thing, for growth. But like in this case, I would love to just, you know, even one-on-one, you know, we Skype or something like that, and you just show me your board, you show me your system, and I say, hey, here's your first step. My family's down in Connecticut, so I was just in Poughkeepsie, like not in January. We stayed in Poughkeepsie, so took my boys to the.
You would so love that.
So, but like no, even without all of that, like again, my heart is to make sure all of our churches can minister, and if we can meet for 5 minutes and, you know, Skype, and I can tell, hey, $150, here's some links, and let's do this. Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Brent, I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you adjust the individual in-ear? So let's say I want to have mine louder, but everyone else quieter. How do you have that control?
So it's going to be different on every board. You know, I mentioned things like the PreSonus and the Midas and the Behringer stage boxes or rack mixers. Okay, those give individual. You take your phone, and it has an app that you connect to it, and you adjust each channel right in your ear on those sorts of things. It's fan-stinking-tastic, okay? Because everybody, there's nothing that you miss. There's nothing you miss out. You have individual channels. You can EQ even for your personal ear on each channel. But that's, you know, those boxes are $1,000, and then you add on just that $150, and then you're good.
But on your phone,
but if we're adding into an existing system, most systems have 4 to 8 channel or monitor channels, that sort of thing, and we would just turn up each channel what needs to go into that.
So like one channel's drums, and then something like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, for our just because I kind of understand where that church is at. I mean, I don't know where you guys are from, but we just went through kind of what Brent just detailed. We did that stage by stage process. We got a different mixer. We went with the X32 Behringer.
Yeah.
And then instead of doing the Behringer sort of amp box, we did the S16s and ran monitor channels out of that into smaller amplifiers, which just go straight into in-ears. That was super cheap. And then we enclosed our drums. So now we have 5 channels. The place where I think our question is right now is to get, like you said, that crisp high end. To get that, at the moment, we have a snare / hi-hat, which is not a great mix over there. So, like, what mic would you recommend? Because we got a really decent set for the rest of the drum kit. For the cymbals, we got really good. We got good high end on the cymbals, but for the hi-hat, it still sounds pretty muddy. So
do you use two mics on the cymbals,
on
overhead?
Each side? Yes, overhead.
So I would drop your the snare hi-hat, put it just on your snare, and then I would take your other overheads. Now, one thing that I find a lot of churches do, that let's just say, let's do this differently, okay? A lot of the times they'll have the cymbals and you'll go straight down over the different parts of the cymbals. I get why we do that, but instead, if we throw one of those mics out of phase, okay, there's a phase button on the X32. Throw one of them out of phase and let's cross them so they're aiming separate ways. This guy here is going to pick up your ride and that sort of thing. This guy over here is going to pick up both your hi-hat and your crash. Okay. And putting them like this, you're going to run in. You're actually end up seeing that you'll get clearer. Having one out of phase and going cross, you'll get clearer high end coming through.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Try that out.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Cool. Yeah, but I mean, I was just listening to like what you were sharing, and I was like, I understand that pain of wanting to win that war on stage with sound. And, and I think for us, the deal breaker, because it was kind of like convincing people in the church that this was necessary, because the back of our church building is 60 meters away from stage. 60 feet, I mean, 60 feet. So it's like, like with the drums not enclosed, you were already like...
You didn't need anything else.
Yeah, you were blowing... Like with stage sound, we didn't even need the house speakers. We were blowing people away with stage. So it was like that kind of a feel to now we all are in-ears. But I think the transition, and I think that might be worth talking through if you can speak to it more for the other church that needs it. Because Ben and I are part of the same church over here. So just that transition of going digital, I think made the big difference for us from moving from that.
It does.
Because it was like we were fighting a losing battle with trying to stick with analog and try and work with how many inputs we had. Whereas now it's just like it's exponential now with a digital board. So it's like
the X32
real quick,
specifically.
Exactly.
It's a great board. Yeah. I am an old school guy. I grew up. I worked in studios. I cut tape. I was an analog guy, and I love my analog stuff, okay? Until about 6-7 years ago when I really started doing this full time, working with churches that need to set up all the time. I'm telling you what, digital is a savior to those churches. It is amazing. Wouldn't trade it for the world. And now that I have my experience because of that, digital makes things easier in a place like churches that work mostly with volunteers. Once again, we're getting rid of distractions. We're making it easier for our volunteers to run these systems without needing someone like myself that knows the ins and out of any board you get behind. You don't need that. You can just have it set in. The other thing I wanted to encourage, so we talked about the drums real quick, but also when you get new speakers, when you get those sorts of things, or even old speakers, honestly, any speakers, you should shoot the room, shoot the sound twice a year at least. Every time that there's a major change in temperature, temperature really changes the sound in a room. So every time there's a major temperature change, you should shoot the room. So you should play a CD that you're familiar with. You know how it's supposed to sound. If you don't have a professional guy come in and do this, just play something. You know how it's supposed to sound. You know how you want it to sound. And just have it go through one channel, and on the channel have all of the EQ, the equalization, straight up on 0, nothing changing there, and then EQ the main output to sound the way that it should sound. Okay, this will help you get more headroom or maximum gain from all your channels. If you're having a problem with feedback or anything like that, this will help you so much get all of that back. So, sorry.
If I had never done that before, and I'd say I'm an experienced soundman, so I understand what's going on, and I've never shot the room before, as you say. How long would that usually take?
It depends on the system. It depends on what you have. So some older boards, you just have a high and a low, and that's, you do the best you can, and that's fine. There's no major issue with that. You do the best you can with what you got. That's good. With like a digital system, now we have a 32 band EQ built in for each channel. So I'm going through, and with my mains, so I have mains and subs separated, and I'll go through on each individual frequency that is there and sweep them, make sure that nothing is going on in the room. I literally just did it today with my digital system. So it took a little bit long. It takes a little bit longer because there's a lot more channels, or a lot more frequencies. But it took me 2 hours, 2-3 hours. The first time I did it, it took me probably about 6 hours to shoot the room. Just because you really got to take your time. It's always better to give yourself time. And that's with anything. Worship, always give your sound guy as much time as humanly possible to take care of you. If you don't want distractions, give him time or her time, whatever it may be. Give them time to take care of you.
Okay, I have two questions too. I don't want to get totally sorry. I have one for you and one for Jeff. So Jeff, really quickly, I just want to check in where we're at about the adult worship camp and make sure you haven't forgotten us, okay? Don't forget us. I'm signing up for the first one.
What's funny about that is I was just on a 2-hour Zoom call from 6 to 8 with my worship camp team dreaming that up. So February 2020 probably.
But I would love to join you and help wherever I can. That would be awesome.
Come on now, that's sweet.
Okay, and Brent, for you, you are describing we're a small country church. We have a lot of sound issues you've been describing. It really hits home because we have all of those issues. How do we go about as a worship team? How do we transition from recognizing we have those issues to presenting it to the eldership board, who's going to approve or disapprove of actually putting in the new system? Because right now we have several people on it that are not convinced that we need to touch the system because they don't hear a problem.
No, that is a fantastic question. That literally, that has been my job for the last 7 years. That's what I do. Help.
Really quick, sorry. Do you guys have a digital or analog board right now?
We have an analog.
Okay.
A 32 channel.
32 channel analog. Okay, I was just curious. Sorry, Brent, I didn't mean that.
No, that's great.
No cage for the drums.
I am a free range drummer.
You have
really cool to watch.
Acoustic drum set and everything too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I love it. So you're talking about. I'm loving it so far. So no. So this is okay. We're not in the business to convince people. Okay. So we're and that's the. at the end of the day, that's always been my approach. I don't want to convince anybody that they need this or that. I want to illuminate the issue. Okay. I think patience is important. Definitely. In something I've really had to work on working with churches, especially with sound. As everyone knows, when it comes to production, it's probably the point of most contention, or the biggest point of contention in most churches. At any point of production. We're not looking to make people happy, and we're not looking to be happy. We're looking, once again, to eliminate distractions. So if we can go up and we can show, hey, this is going to help us. Here's a plan. We've thought this through. Another, I was telling Josh before the call gets started, another big part of my ministry has been consulting with churches on how to plan and disciple. Planning is one of the most important things churches can learn. So this is something else, but it has everything to do with how I approach, when I approach a church board or elder board or whatever it might be. I have a list of every single thing, and I'm talking down to nut and bolt wire. I have the price, I have why, and I don't have just one thing. I have multiple options. I say, hey, this will help. This is much better. And this would make our day. And this gives us room for, I try not to make it more than 3 or 4 options. But, you have these things that you set up. Don't walk in with one thing and say, this is what we need. Nobody wants that. And honestly, I've never been in a conversation where somebody said yes to something like that. Giving options is huge, but explaining those options and understanding them, whoever is sharing that, understanding your options is even bigger than having them. So that's where talking to someone like myself or Jeff or anybody else, you can call up Sweetwater Music. Everybody's kind of heard of Sweetwater nowadays, but they are one of the greatest resources on the planet when it comes to anything production, anything musical. I honestly, I have questions. I'll call them up. They are amazing people, and they just want to help. They're not even trying to sell something.
They call you every month, and they're like, hey, this is your Sweetwater representative. Just want to make sure everything's okay with you guys. It's pretty cool.
Wow,
They're
cool.
fantastic.
Hey, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to add too that when you're looking to kind of revamp your sound, something that, again, I have a budget of $1,000 a year. I think long term as well, you don't have to do everything at once. A lot of churches can't afford that. So maybe this year you're looking to getting a digital board. Next year you're looking to getting in-ears or a drum cage or something like that, or not all at the same time. I mean, ideally, if you could kind of convince them or share your vision to say, hey, if we want to continue to grow, we want to continue to grow to excellence, we should get all this at once. That's the ideal thing. But also it's kind of what he said about like what is most important right now, and then kind of figuring it out from there too. So
yeah.
I mean, I just had 2 questions for the other church as well, because I understand the pain, because we were right there, like literally a year and a half ago, we were exactly where you were at. And I just happen to have the rare privilege of being the senior pastor and on the elder board and being on the worship team. So I see it from both ends. But do you guys
I got that advantage too.
Okay. So now, if you as an elder get to, because at elder meetings, or if they're the main decision-making body for expenses, do you know enough about what you're asking to be able to clearly articulate it? Or like Jeff just said, do you go with, hooking up a call where you all as elders can talk to a Sweetwater professional or something, because otherwise if you have someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, just saying, I guess we need to use this money, it's not a good enough reason for an eldership. You know. And I found that the other question exactly
it shouldn't be.
Well, the good question is, how long have you guys been using this mixing board?
How old is that mixer?
I think they said around 10 to 20 years.
It's an analog. I mean, it seems to work okay. Our biggest problem seems to be on the monitor side. So far.
Yeah. I mean, for us, I just prayed and I said, Lord, take it out.
You can accidentally have somebody slip some coffee over it.
So, but I mean, I get it. I mean, because you're like, you don't want to waste money, but at the same time, to grow, we needed that, you know. And I think once that's communicated, and in another session that Josh and I are on, if you can't sell them on the purpose of what you're doing, you got to sell them on the process, because they can't understand why you're doing this. It's like we have something that works. So the process of, we want to do worship well. We want, like, you have to really talk through why you think this is needed. It's not just a embellishment, because I think eldership boards are just a little bit concerned of, like, hey, are you just gonna go crazy with lights and crazy gadgets when we don't need it to worship?
That came up at the meeting, and whether one of the elders wanted to know if it was for the worship team's betterment or for the church's betterment. And it's like, if it was for the worship team's benefit, it wasn't going to be okay. So it was very hard to explain the overall betterment.
Well, I feel like the benefit of the worship team does benefit the church and the congregation. And it should, like I said before, if we're helping eliminate those distractions, if we're helping the Holy Spirit work in the worship team more, all that's going to do is bring more of Him to the congregation, So helping the worship team is helping the church, and I think that's something that's very important to understand.
I think
we're gonna go for 5 more minutes, and then we're gonna be
okay. I think for me, I remember you're dealing with some people, like a lot of churches that I used to visit and travel, because I did a lot of traveling. I remember this one time I was at this church, and I was like, hey, can I get myself up in the monitors a little bit? I can't really hear myself. And the sound guy was like, do you actually really need to hear yourself? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I have vocal strength and all this stuff. So, I mean, sometimes I think it's important, what we're kind of saying is, like, do your research before you present it to your board. They might not have any idea why it's valuable, but you could tell them, hey, listen, sound affects everything. Like, it affects, drum cages would affect the overall quality of it and everything. And honestly, for me, if I could give you my 30-second pitch, I just accidentally made my chair go down. If I could give you my 30-second endorsement of a digital soundboard, it's simply this, especially the Behringer X32, is if you brought in somebody like Brent, like one time, to kind of, or maybe twice, I don't know, Brent might be like, no, I can't do it one time. But honestly, one time to your specific people, the beauty about the digital board, specifically the X32, is you can save that channel as John Smith's vocal. And every time John Smith is leading worship, you could reload that vocal the exact way that Brent mixed it, so that it sounds this clarity and that, that they kind of mix every single time. And so that's something that you just can't do on an analog board. I mean, I guess you can, like, get a composition book and kind of.
That'd be tough. Or take a picture.
Yeah, take a picture. That's what I used to do all the time. But I mean, that alone to me is like worth the $1,400 for a digital board. So anyway.
And like I said, nowadays, I agree. X32 is fantastic, but there's other boards that are the expansion. Or the distance between good and bad has darn near disappeared nowadays. And so it's not disappeared. There are bad boards. Okay, don't get me wrong. There are bad ones. But if you're spending $1,000, I'll tell you, I don't know $1,000 board right now that's not good. I haven't seen one right now on a digital board. $1,000 digital board, I haven't seen a bad one. And I'm pretty confident in that you're going to get good sound if you get something like that. And the nice things with these, like you said, the X32 as well, and the PreSonus and Midas and all of these, having that ability to connect with your phone instead of buying a lot of other equipment, that saves you money. It saves you a lot of money when you're talking about in-ears. So finding a system that you can use things like your own phone or tablet and that sort of thing, you'll save tons of money, and that will last you a long time, because that will continue to, as technology grows, you have something that's growing with it.
Yeah. I have one more question. It's kind of different than what we've talked about. We've been talking a lot about hardware. Sound guys, again, I told this story to Brent. I was a sound guy when I was 14 years old, because that's how old you could be when my 14th birthday, 2 days later, I was on the soundboard learning. And I think I've seen it in a lot of churches I've grown up with. It's like, hey, it's the people who maybe aren't good enough musicians are the sound men. And so it always seems like a place where a lot of people are learning and growing and developing. So I guess my question to you, Brent, is if you had a sound guy that's just learning or is growing, like, what are one or two resources or things that you would focus on and be like, hey, you do this and you're going to get 3 times better in the next 6 months if you work hard? What's one or two little steps or keys or tips or resources that you can give us?
So one resource that I honestly, this is what, when I taught at college, this is what I taught. It's an old book. It's called The Sound Reinforcement Handbook. It was written for Yamaha by, I don't know, a couple guys that used to used to write the all the manuscripts for different things, whatever. But it has every bit of information, and honestly, I tell everyone to read this, whether you are a musician, a sound guy, anything. It is the most invaluable resource that I can find, and it's old. I mean, I think the second issue came out in like 1990, but it's fantastic. You can get the free PDF online.
For $21 on Amazon.
You can get you if you want to download. There's a free PDF you can get right online.
Awesome.
And you just download. I actually, that's where I got mine. Yeah, it's fantastic. Please read it. It will teach you literally everything from what a sine wave is, how it works within a room, within different, in different frequencies. Everything teaches you how to fix microphones, everything. It'll save you money reading the book. It's amazing. Understanding everything. What I would always tell my classes is read to the point that you don't understand something, and then get online and research that. Yeah. Okay. That's what you do. Like, you get to these words and you're like, well, I don't know what they're talking about. Get on YouTube and watch 6 dozen, videos explaining what a sine wave is. And you're going to learn so much and understand so much more. I always tell musicians, the more you understand sound, the better it's going to be for you, because you'll be able to communicate to the sound person, even if they don't know what they're doing. You'll be able to communicate to them, hey, my voice down in that 800 range is killing me. Can you do something with that? And be very specific, because you'll know. Yeah, go check that out.
Great. Well, I'll get that in the email to us. That's awesome. Well, awesome. Hey, it's 9:15 already. I don't want to keep us too long. Again, if you guys have questions, we could. I have a feeling we're going to connect again sometime in the next month, Brent.
Hey, I'm down. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. So, can you guys give it up for Brent? Thanks for being here.
Thank you guys for having me.
Really appreciate it. If you guys, I know we're talking just a couple people right now, but this is also for the recording. If you guys are walking away saying, well, like, this is awesome stuff, we got so many more tips, but you're walking away saying, like, hey, I have dreams and things I want to implement, and I don't know how to get there. We want to, one of the things that Elam Fellowship has been doing is developing our coaching program. And this is not sound professional people. Like, again, Brent's offered his services to connect with you guys, help you guys in a lot of ways. But this kind of makes me think of, like, how do I go about dealing with a weird relationship of that guitarist that shreds all the time? Or, like, how do I deal with my elder board and walk through those tough situations? Our coaching team really wants to help you guys walk through that, because it's not about saying, hey, this is what you should do. It's helping you guys process and make plans and action plans for change that you want. Whether that's developing, hey, what's the 4-year budget that we need to develop? You know, our coaches want to be with you guys and walk with you guys through those situations, because we know that information, like, just because we have the information doesn't mean change automatically happens in our church. There's a process that we have to walk through. And so I'm actually dropping it, and there's a link right here in our chat right now. It's just the Elam Fellowship page. And if you guys want to connect with some EF certified coaches, these are people that we train to help, again, not give you answers, but help you guys process and make plans and make action steps. We want to be with you every step of the way, not just giving you the knowledge or information that you need, but really helping you implement your ideas and reach your goals. And also, you know, if you're a friend of Elam or a credential holder or an affiliated churches, we actually give reduced price coaching or reduced prices on a lot of that coaching things. Our goal through these, through coaching, through these different huddles, is to help you guys win, help you guys succeed, help you guys have the best worship possible, be the best leaders possible, because we know if we're free of distraction, if we're able to have an awesome team, God is going to meet us. Not just because production is awesome that God meets us, but it's just like, hey, when I'm less stressed, it's easier for me to pray. It's easier for me to worship. It's easier for me to preach. It's easier for me to lead. And so we really want to see you guys win and succeed. The last thing I want to talk about too is I'm actually going to paste the registration link for our next webinar. Jeff, what are we talking about in our next webinar?
I honestly can't remember right now.
He is so blitzed.
But it's going to be amazing.
So it's August 12th at 8 p.m. It's a Monday night. I'm actually going to, I'll drop the registration here. And here, this is not, I've said this before, these huddles are not just EF-centric things. Hey, you don't have to just be ordained or whatever. Like, share this link with whoever you want, or you know, far and wide, whatever. We want to see churches and the local church equipped for worship and for ministry, and we want to see people interacting with God on a powerful way on Sunday mornings, on Tuesday nights during your practice, on Wednesday morning your prayer time. Is like, we really want you guys to win, and so share it with whoever you want, and anything like that. So once again, thank you so much, Brent, for being here. Jeff, thank you so much for being here. We're excited that your worship camp went well. And thank you guys for being here too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys are incredible.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Who's going to leave first?
Are you?
No, I'm just saying who's going to leave first.
They don't want to leave. Everybody
Yeah.
else-
Did you guys enjoy your ice cream? It was good?
Oh, it was good. We were going to send some your way.
You should have.
I figured it would have melted by the time you guys got it, but yeah.
We'll test these.
Well, I'm glad you guys had a viewing party. This is awesome. I know there was a couple of you guys here together last time. Like I said, mark it down, August 12th. We'd love to see you guys winning. And it seems like you're connecting with Jeff Moore too, and Brent too. So that's awesome. I'm going to make sure you guys are able to get some email addresses, and yeah, it's awesome that you guys are here.
Yeah.
Well, it's great. You got pretty much our whole worship team here. We're missing one guy. Ironically, the one guy that we're missing has problems with his voice. He's got a nodule on his voice, so he has to chill for about a month or so.
Yeah.
And he's old school, and I wonder if it's because, you know, he did the old-fashioned wedge monitor stuff and trying to overcome that instead of do the in-ear thing. So
Yeah, shouting for a long time, it'll do it. It'll
Yeah.
do it.